Hi! Today I have 4 things for you. It's the first part of our own developed system, which we call the Fear-Free Speaker System. It consists of 2 parts, fear and speaker. Both of them are acronyms, meaning that they stand for something. In this video, I want to give you the first part, the fear. And you have probably guessed right that the fear has to do with fear and public speaking. And I want to dive right into the first letter in fear, the F. This point is incredibly important. If you do not get this, practically everything else you do or learn has little or no impact. And it's something almost everyone struggles with. So what is the F? It is feeling. You must create a great feeling before you come up on stage. That could be being energetic, being passionate, enthusiastic, or whatever state of feeling you consider right for you for that presentation. So how do you do that? I'm going to give you 2 techniques that you can start applying today whenever you have a presentation. And that is, you have your mind, your focus, and you have your body. What is one thing that is essential for living? That is oxygen. We all need to breathe, and without oxygen, we cannot live very long. And it is directly correlated to how you feel, how you breathe. You know it. When you're anxious, nervous, fearful, you're breathing from the chest. A shallow, very quick breath. However, if you're relaxed, confident, calm, and collected, you're breathing from the belly, from the diaphragm. You're breathing so that your stomach goes in, out, and in. On the breath in, it goes out. So you get more oxygen in. And then you breathe out. And the stomach goes in. And you actually start relaxing when you breathe out. That's where you get rid of all the toxics. So how can you apply that when you are on stage? You can do deep breathing. When you ask a question, for instance, and you have the nerves, you feel nervous during your presentation, you ask a question for your audience, and you take a deep breath and let them think about that question. So how do you make a great presentation? And you relax. And you can use it before you go up on stage. Deep breathing right before you go up on stage. It's a wonderful technique. You can use it afterwards if you're still nervous to calm yourself down. Very easy to use, very applied. That's the first tool I have for you, my friend. The second tool is your focus. And there are 2 kinds of focus you can be in. You can have a foveal vision, where you are very focused on one detail, one specific thing. The problem with that when you do public speaking is you will be stressed. It has been shown that when you are in this vision, foveal vision, it is connected to the sympathetic nervous system, meaning that it's connected to the fight and flight system. You get nervous, you want to run away, you are not comfortable, you are not confident. However, if you are in the opposite view, peripheral vision, peripheral, I always have a hard time saying that, that means you kind of take in everything. You have this big, broad view. It means you are relaxed. Maybe you remember when you just started driving, there was a lot of things you had to focus on. The lever, the pedals, the mirrors, the road, the car. And because you were not trained, you probably went into foveal vision on all of the things because you focused on the different things, and that was stressful. I remember when I started driving, it was not a pleasant experience. But now that I'm experienced, I relax. I see the entire road. I see the sides. It's kind of like I almost know what's going on behind me. Of course, I don't. But probably it's the same for you if you are now an experienced driver. You take in everything. And the peripheral vision has again been shown to be connected to the rest and digest system in our autonomic nervous system, meaning you relax. So you have peripheral vision, you still connect with the audience, you still look at one member, but you have the view of everybody. So that is a very useful technique. Imagine your audience and have the same view as when you are driving, where you take in everything. If you are not a driver, maybe you can substitute it with sports or biking. For instance, when I play football, I don't just look at the ball right there. I mean, I look at everything, and when the ball then comes, I look at it, but I take in the people, and I react subconsciously. All the good things comes from the subconscious. I'm not conscious when I play football. I do think, but like if I was conscious and thought about, now I'm going to hit the ball, it's coming towards me, that's too conscious a skill, and you will not play a great football game. It's the same with public speaking. You have to be so comfortable in your speech that you can relax and know that the stories will come to you, that the material will come to you, that you are relaxed and comfortable with it. And if you forget a thing, you're comfortable with that, you go back, you tell it. You gotta memorize your speech. You gotta know your structure more or less and let it come from the subconscious. These are the two techniques you can use to be feeling great on stage and before as well. Let me move on to the next point, which is E in the fear system. It is something that is incredibly hard. Practically every new speaker struggles with this. It is very complicated, and it's not just, boom, learn it and you got it. It's a lifelong process, something I'm more struggling with and a lot of people. And what is the E? That is ego, meaning you be yourself. Can you be yourself on stage? Can you be yourself on stage? It's actually quite hard to be yourself on stage, especially when you start as a new speaker. We have the tendency to be thinking a lot about, oh, I want my audience to love me. I hope they like my speech. Am I doing well? Am I remembering everything? So be yourself. And how can you do that? A lot of times I get the stupid questions in my own mind when I do the presentations. Oh, do they like me? Is my presentation going well? What should I say in a little bit? I try to be ahead of my speech. All of these things are a bad idea. Try not to do it. But it's hard not to not do something. So when I say, don't be ahead in your speech, you cannot not think about it, right? So what do? I use my focus and put it on the audience. I focus with a member of the audience, connect with that individual member. I focus and have eye contact with that member. I then afterwards go on and connect with another person. And every time I start having a focus away from the audience, I then, as soon as I get conscious about it, I refocus on the audience. The presentation is not about you. No one cares about you. You are not important at all. We think we are so important, but really we are not. So focus on your audience and use this technique to refocus. That's the first point. The next is you have to be comfortable in your own skin to deliver the 3 F's. And what are they? They are your first times, which typically are not very good, your faults, and, sorry for the language, your fuck-ups. First time you do something, very rarely is it good. Tell those stories. First time I tried it, boom, I did this and this, and it went terribly wrong. Share your faults. Boom, I have a tendency to blah, blah, blah. For instance, I just shared that I always have these questions in my mind. And I do have another thing, a little bit personal. I don't know why, but for some reason, I am always afraid that my zipper is down. So I will check it probably 20 times before I go up on stage, just to be sure. It's never happened to me, as I don't have any bad experiences with it, but that's my thing. So that's a fault I have. Share your faults. Share your fuck-ups. For instance, when I made my bachelor project as an engineer, together with 2 friends, it lasted about 6 months, and we got some data in after about a month or 2, and we started analyzing all the data, and actually almost all of it made sense except one graph, which we discussed for many hours. We discussed it with our supervisor, and we couldn't make sense of it, and it didn't fit with the theory. All the other data did. Then the night before we had to defend it, make the oral presentation, I couldn't find the graph, so I just decided, hey, let me go into Excel, remake the graph, and I discovered that we had plotted the wrong things. And I started thinking, wow, we spent so many hours talking about this, and none of us had the idea that we could have gone back and checked that stupid graph. That was a true fuck up. We really fucked up. But you know what? We were brave enough to present the data and tell the supervisor the next day and the guy that examined our project to say we made a mistake. We just, all right, we made this mistake. And he was cool with it. He's like, great, you share this mistake. Good, you know it. And we still got a good grade. And I actually think he liked us for sharing that fuck up. Do the same. And the great thing about you sharing the 3 F's is you can brag. You can share those wonderful results you have. You can say, I managed to do this and make a change in people, and you become more trustworthy. People believe you much more when you do share your first times, your faults, and your fuck-ups. So these are the 2 techniques. On the E, being yourself, self-awareness is a killer. Refocus on your audience and share the 3 F's. The next part in this system, the A in fear, is something I have struggled a great deal with, and I think it has a lot to do with life as well. And I think public speaking is quite similar to life. When you develop as a person, you typically tend to develop as well as a public speaker. And the A stands for acceptance. Accepting where you are in life right now does not mean it's going to tell you where you end. And I want to give you a little story. I grew up in a family, and my dad and me, we had a lot of disagreements, a lot of fights, and a lot of struggles. And I deeply wanted him to show me his love. I wanted him to say, son, I'm proud of you. I'm happy you're here. He didn't tell me that growing up. So I struggled. I spent time and energy to make him give me that love, show me that love. And one thing he really cared about was scientific classes, doing well in school and academia. So I had signed up to become an engineer. And after the first semester at the engineering school, DTU, I came back after the last exam. We were 40 chemical engineers. And I, as the only one on the last exam, got 13. It's not here today, the 13 scale, but it's the 12 of 12. A fantastic grade. And I, as the only one, got it. And I got back. It was winter break. And I remember standing there in the hallway. My dad was right there. We're both looking each other in the eyes. The door is on the right. The coats are hanging there in the hallway. My heart's beating. I know it's the moment. I'm going to say the phrase to him. The one thing that will hopefully make him proud and tell him, I love you, I think you're fantastic. I didn't tell him the phrase. I challenged him and say, you didn't think I could become an engineer. He replies, no, I didn't. And turns around and goes back in to the kitchen. I take my coat, leave the door, and at that moment, I accept that I can probably go to Mars and come back, and I won't hear the phrase, I love you, I'm proud of you. I could run around this earth, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of times. He wouldn't tell me. So that released, of course, it made me sad, but at the same time, it released so much energy in me. I could stop spending time, energy to get him to love me. I accepted that. That's part of life. You can do the same in public speaking, accepting things. About 8 months ago, I had a presentation. There were about 100 people, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and I hadn't done the really good warm-up, which I really learned my lesson that day, because it was a morning meeting. It was 7 o'clock, and I have 3 kids, twins, about a year old at that time, and a daughter almost 4, so sleep is not a big thing on my program. So I decided, let me sleep as much as possible, and I told myself, hey Asger, you're a fairly experienced speaker, you are not going to get nervous, you decide you're not nervous. So I got to the venue, and the 2 tables are lined up on the left and on the right, and I remember sitting there on the table right before being introduced, together with my business partner, Asger, and I tell him, Asger, damn, I'm nervous. The nerves are coming, and he just says to me, it's the cortisol. You cannot do anything about it. And I just realized, fuck, I hadn't done my warm-up. I needed to have done that, but they were smelling blood. They were really tough guys, and right away they disagreed with me, a lot of people. There were also some great guys, and I got nervous. It sucked my presentation, I can honestly say that. But afterwards, I was so mad at myself because I hadn't prepared, because I got put down by some of the guys being tough on me. So I took an apple at the buffet after the presentation. I went outside the hotel and just threw it as hard as I could down on the pavement, and I was so angry. I was angry for about a day, and the next day I realized I accepted that was a bad performance. I hadn't warmed up, and I accepted that I should find strategies to handle a tough audience with negative attitudes. So it was just a learning experience. That's the A. And there's another thing in the A which is very well combined with the F, creating a great feeling. Because you can do all the warm-up in the world, which will help you a ton, so please do it. But the fear can still come, and it will. And what I do when it comes is I give it love. I tell myself it is there for a reason. That part, the fear part, is here to help me. I believe that, honestly, everything is there to help me. So I give it love, I give it attention, I say, I know you're here to help me, and it calms my brain down because consciously I have thought about that danger. My amygdala now knows I thought about the danger. I'm okay with it. So recognize it rather than running away from your fear. Dance with it, hug it, give it love. The more love you give your fear, the less influence it has on you. So that's the third tip. Accepting where you are in life doesn't mean where you're going to end. Give the A love. And the last part is R, which stands for rehearsal. An extremely underrated part of presenting. A lot of people spend very little time rehearsing. Maybe they spend a lot of time making the slides, but that's about 10-20% of your presentation. You should rehearse. How would you feel if you went into your presentation knowing that that was a great presentation you were going to make? Rather than being like, hey, I don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. You can set up the experiment. Make the hypothesis. Try these 2 experiments. Try your presentation. I put in a ton of data on my slides. Speak fast. Cut out stories. Cut out examples. And then find 3 friends that hear your story. Ask them afterwards, what are the key takeaways you remember? See how much they remember. Probably not very much. Or you can make the other experiment. Let me give them the overview, the big picture. And you then make the experiment. Let me put in examples, stories, and give them the big overview. Don't go into the nitty-gritty details. Try that experiment and then ask them and make them write it down on paper. What are the key messages you remember? That will be quite interesting to compare. I am very confident that if you put stories, examples, analogies, metaphors, it works much better. So these are the 4 tools. Shortly, the short version of these 4 tools in the first part of the Fear-Free Speaker System. F, make sure you do your warm-up, feel great before you go on stage. E, be yourself. Can you be yourself on stage? A, acceptance. Accept where you are in life. Accept the fear. Hug it, embrace it, love it. And R, rehearse. It's easy. It's just using the time. That's all for me for today. Have a great day.